Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the all new Ghosts and Spirits special edition video. Well, it is that time when it comes to having episode 4 of the quarantine lockdown special edition videos that Ghost Adventures has had these past couple of weeks. I've already done the past 3 commentaries as far as my videos there on the past 3 episodes. If you haven't had a chance to see those, I'll include the links for them below. They've actually proven to be pretty popular. Good number of views associated with each video, so it goes to show that people have definitely liked what I've done here. And then that way you can catch up with those, and then that way we can see this one together here. But yes, indeed, it's been a good time. I really enjoyed these particular episodes involving these quarantine lockdown ones. This is the big one, though. This is the one that everything has been hyping up for these past couple of weeks now, and that's of course having to do with this, the Dybbuk box. Will it finally be opened? He's been teasing it for so long now. There's been that Halloween special, the infamous one, where he was saying will he or won't he, and it was all going to be live, and it was going to be shown on the Travel Channel in front of millions of people, and it turns out he didn't. So that was kind of a bust. And then there was also that other part, I don't know if you call it a special, but he was doing something with another celebrity called Post Malone, and within that special, he was doing an opening, but then of the Dybbuk box. But then also he stopped pretty much right then and there and didn't do so. But now, finally, it looks like we're gonna have the box open. We're gonna get to see what happens after he's done. So, I mean, after all, the episode is called Dybbuk Box: The Opening, so it pretty much guarantees that it should absolutely happen. So I can't wait. I think this has been a great set of episodes so far. Lots of great material. Again, check out the links if you haven't seen my commentary on them. And then check out the episodes that are tied to them as well, because there's been some really, really good stuff about the infamous Haunted Museum that I've seen 3 times now, and it's been a really, really great time. So let's go ahead and we'll watch first this segment 1, together, and then we'll come back here. So as always, the way I'll do it is we'll watch each segment together, and then I'll give it a brief 10-15 second pause, and then when we come back, then we'll talk about it together, and I'll go over all my commentary associated with that segment. So yes, let's watch segment 1 together, right from the beginning intros all the way to the first commercial break, and then I'll see everyone soon. Alright, everybody, see y'all soon. Alright, everybody, so segment 1 just finished, and that was quite a good segment, a longer segment than usual. It definitely seemed like there was a lot more material this go around. Lots of stuff that I want to talk about from that segment right from the beginning. So let's go ahead and let's talk about it here. So for starters, it looks like it was again, focusing right at the beginning, obviously, from the museum. I thought these episodes have been a great commercial for the museum. If they haven't made you want to go see it now, I don't know what else will. And it's gotten me interested in seeing the museum just one more time. Even though I've been there 3 times already, I definitely want to go see it again because of all the new information that I've seen here. So kudos to Zach when it comes to making sure that he's drummed up all this new interest in the museum. It's much better than, let's say, spending who knows how many tens of thousands of dollars on, let's say, commercials and billboards and all that other type of marketing. Here, though, these episodes have definitely done the trick. And then, as always, there's those eerie, desolate shots there in Las Vegas that have been happening these past couple of weeks. How I wish, again, I could have been there to see this other world whenever you experience something like that. So it would almost make it seem like it's unsettling. And here I was, not able to do so, but at least it was great to see it there on the TV. I was surprised to hear, too, that Zach had to take that day off. So episode 3 ended with him sitting within that devil's rocking chair, and then he stated at the beginning of this episode that he had to take the day off because, lo and behold, more scratch marks are now on his back. As you've seen in some of the past episodes and some of the past seasons, including from the very first one, that Bob Mackey's world that I've been a fan of, obviously from season one. Zach has not had good luck when it comes to scratch marks. He's always had them happen, not always, but they're very periodic when it comes to visiting these haunted places and having these evil entities just having issues with him. So having these scratch marks again is not good. In fact, on a personal level, we actually had a guest at the Gonzales Prison Museum experience a scratch mark as well. She got a big scratch mark on her leg while she was there on the second floor of the Haunted Museum. So I've got to see one not happen live, like essentially as it was occurring, but I definitely got to hear it because all of a sudden she stated that something was burning in her leg, and then when she lifted up her jean, that's when we all saw that scratch mark there. I'll see if I can find the footage of it. I think I took a picture of it too, so I'll see if I can post it sometime soon here on my community tab or somewhere else. And then also it looks like they were interviewing some of the guests, like some of the other people there within the museum. I really love when they do that because it definitely highlights some of the stuff there. And it has to do, of course, when they were talking about the Dybbuk box. The Dybbuk box, what a big setup associated with that. I know the history of it. Like by now, I've seen the movie, I've seen several TV specials, some documentary type stuff, and then it showcases that there's a black cloak figure that apparently now roams that hallway there in the Haunted Museum, and how some of the guests and some of the employees have been experiencing it. That got me really interested because next time I'm there, I'm going to definitely try to look and see if I can find some kind of black cloaked figure skirting about here and there. And I know that hallway, the one that they're describing, that's the one that goes right before the door. There's like a room leading to the room of the Dybbuk box, and then there's a hallway leading to that room itself. And so if you go there, you have to purposely open a door to go into that room, the one that leads before the Dybbuk box room, and then that's the one apparently where that black cloak figure is. Kind of freaky, kind of scary, because I want to definitely be able to see something like that next time if I probably look hard enough. It was interesting too to also see that it's raining outside there in the Haunted Museum. That stood out to me because I remember one of the tour guides stating there that it rains less than a week worth of days there in Las Vegas. You literally have like less than 7 days worth of rain in the middle of the desert there. So the fact that this is happening, and he also mentioned it was a full moon, that was something else that definitely stood out. But back to the interviews that they were having from the employees and the guests there. That lady that was featured, Virginia, I've actually seen her twice there. She's led portions of the tour there myself. So when Zach said that he's been with her 2 years, like pretty much from the beginning, the get-go of the museum itself when it first started, it was nice to hear that she's been there for that good time period. I've seen her twice there. She again has led the tour, so it's pretty neat. Next time that I run into her there, then I'll mention to her about this episode as well and about her experiences. But she was really freaked out. That was really sad to see that. I might bring it up, but I'll bring it up lightly. You know what I mean? I don't want to make sure that this brings back bad memories to her. But again, it's more on a personal level seeing that because I've met her. She's not, in other words, an actor or someone else that was hired just for the show. They actually are interviewing the real tour guides. I've met her twice. So that's proof, again, that this is the real deal whenever they're getting these statements. And then they also interviewed that other lady, the one involving, I guess it was a tour guest, and the freaky experience she had with that same shadow figure floating about. That was something else, especially the way Virginia said it, that it almost bum rushed her and then stood right in front of her face, and then that forced her to just, skitter about as much as possible. Like that was something else. But damn, especially with that guest, over there by that stop, that was also another horrible experience to see right there. Like something truly, absolutely just scared the bejesus out of that poor guest. Interesting too, she was sitting on that same bench, the one that I've sat there waiting for my lift ride from before. So I love that kind of part whenever again it showcases stuff that I've been at. But then also, let's talk about this. Zach was filming about the time where he gets, I don't know if he was calling it, what's his name? Kevin Mattis, yeah, where he was doing that Skype interview where he gets that guy, the one who owned the Dybbuk box, back on when it comes to interview. I've seen him before. He's been on some of the other specials that I mentioned as well a couple of minutes ago, and there he is talking about it and then showcasing more information about the Dybbuk box. And then there was some interesting stuff that was listed there that I have not heard about, including the fact that it's a haunted item, but it's like part one, and that there's 10 more of these somewhere out there. And then the fact that Zach also has a second one, which I had no idea about at all, and it's true. Like he mentioned that that's the first time he's ever revealed it. That's amazing. But it also brought up a little bit, I don't know if you call it red flags, but there's a little bit of stuff that just made me wonder about some things. More on that here in a minute. But yeah, that was interesting to see that he has not only one Dybbuk box, but a smaller one. And then this guy Kevin was providing more information of it. The only thing though was that I don't know, like he was stating that the fact that this was an evil that apparently had several big conflicts that were out there, like the First World War, maybe the Second World War. They show those images of the battles, and then also the containers of gas, the ones that have been used in past wars when it comes to chemical warfare, that kind of stuff. And it made me wonder if this is all happening and the evil was captured, if you will, and then placed into these 10 Dybbuk boxes. So again, Zach has 2 of them. Kevin said he has another 6, and then that means there's 2 of them that are left out there somewhere in the world. If this evil has been captured and then split into these 10 parts, containing them and then making sure that the evil doesn't come out again, why do we have so many other wars afterward? Why was there so much destruction and calamity? The Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, the list goes on and on when it comes to this stuff. Like, why did there so much more loss even after the fact that this evil was contained? I don't know then about that history. That history kind of got lost a little bit on me, and that they're explaining that this kind of stuff happened with the history of the Dybbuk box being tied to all that horrible set of circumstances from before. So I don't know. It got me questioned on that. And then the red flags that I was mentioning a minute ago was this: if there's 6 more that Kevin has right now, then essentially why is he keeping them? Why aren't they stored someplace safe? If he had mentioned that they're in a situation where if they get all the 10 boxes together and this evil is released again, then something else could truly happen to the world. That made it instantly I hate to make it this analyzation, but it made me think of something else along the lines of like the Infinity Gauntlet, like from the Avengers movie. Like if you had the stones all separated for a specific purpose and then get them all together and there's a bunch of destruction that could happen, where did that come from? Like, all of a sudden, there's 10 of these? And because the way I read about the Dybbuk box from before, all these years, ever since Kevin first started the history associated with it, like making people known about it, and then, of course, that led to the specials, and then led to the movie, and then it led to the books, and so on. All that stuff made it seem like there was just one, and that's it, just one. And then that was the one that's there in the Zach Bagans Museum. But now there's 10 of them in total. In fact, the one that's there in the Zach Bagans Museum, I heard that one is actually leased. Like, he didn't buy it from this guy Kevin. I could be wrong, but this is what stuff that I read online. But that it's in turn leased, and then that way it just stays there. Or it could be one of the dolls. I can't remember which one. But either way, though, that's at least something else to mention that I've heard online. So it's setting off some kind of red flags on my end, because if this stuff is truly true, again, about the destruction associated with these boxes, where did that all come from all of a sudden? This all seems just like brand new. I don't want to go too far as say it's like there's profit motives associated with this. Like, I hate putting that out there, but that's one of the red flags that instantly came to mind, because if you have only one Dybbuk box and it's already been sold, and then that's it, like, you pretty much have to have something else backing up, no, when it comes to that. So I don't want to go any further on that part, but that's the kind of flags that I got when I was reading all this information, because it just naturally leads to the fact that if there's going to be more boxes, then there's going to be some profiting being made, and especially if those boxes get sold to, let's say, more collectors looking to make sure that they can get a hold of these boxes. And who knows? I mean, that's just a whole other world there. But it was interesting to see at least all these other angles associated with the box itself and all the buildup tied to it being opened. The fact that there's now 10 of them is a whole nother world. It's a whole nother shock talk on my end, and I'll definitely have to see and maybe make another video associated with that, because I have talked about the Dybbuk box in the past, and again, all the information online was at the time, it just made it seem like it was just one, but now that there's 10 on here, well, I'm going to definitely have to look on that too. So, alright everybody, let's go ahead and let's watch segment 2 together, and then I'll see you back soon. Alright, take care. Alright everybody, welcome back. So we just finished watching segment 2 together of this quarantine special involving the Dybbuk box, and let's go ahead and let's talk about that. So at the very beginning, it looks like they were talking about leaving cameras specifically in the room by the box, and then also in the hallway leading up to the box itself. It got me thinking though immediately while I was watching that segment, why hasn't this been done before? Not like in a bad way, like I'm not criticizing it. I'm simply stating more on the lines of what a wonderful opportunity to capture some of the best evidence in the world. Imagine that, having still cameras every single night right by that location, right by the hallway or the box itself. You're bound to showcase something, like something involving that shadow figure, the one that the crew was mentioning, the tour guide, and then also the guest had seen before, and then the one that Zach also saw as well. I mean, talk about some of the best evidence ever that could be captured from there. So I'm wondering why that hasn't been done before. And as we saw later in the segment, already they were capturing some really good stuff. So again, just stuff that makes me wonder. And then also there was that graph. Did you see that quick graph that showcased the second floor? And then you saw the room itself involving the Dybbuk box. Well, you also got to see real quickly the room before, the one I was mentioning earlier, the room leading up to the room of the Dybbuk box. This is actually an important room too, because it's an opportunity, the way the tour guide stated, is anyone that doesn't want to see the box can stay within that room as well. So that way, if you don't want to take that risk associated with the Dybbuk box, like to have something bad happen to you there or afterward, as the legend goes, as the way the story goes, how this stuff can apparently follow you home, then you have a chance to stay within that room too. But as at least whenever they were in the room itself and they were taking off that plexiglass, it got me thinking how easy that was. I didn't realize the plexiglass was just, I guess, placed on top of that podium. I thought it would have been either cemented or drywalled or something else screwed within the podium itself. But no, it looks like you can actually just lift it up as is, and then you'll be able to continue having access to the box itself. I didn't realize it was that easy. And then all that extra light that was within the room itself, it was neat to see it, because when you're on the room during a regular tour, like I have been now 3 times, you don't really see all that light. It's very dark within the room. There's like maybe one light and it's shining directly on the box itself. Everything else is darkened around you, so you don't really get to see too much of the walls. But now that I've seen it here in these segments, it looks like it's more along the lines of a Hollywood production. Like it looks like there's fake wall coverings that are placed on there, and obviously it's been painted to look a certain color, and there's certain textures that it looks like have been placed on there as well. So very interesting to see all that, at least for the first time, even though I've been there 3 times before. And then here we go again. It looks like with more of the physical injuries that the crew seems to be having based now on the box itself. That back pain, they've been mentioning that in some of the past episodes too. Now it looks like it's coming back, and it wasn't just impacting Zach, but it was impacting also Aaron. So interesting. I keep wondering why it's the back pain. Why not something else like the leg or the head or some other part of the body? That was a little freaky though, to see Zach almost attack Billy when it comes to pushing him out of the room. I don't know though about, it seems like he's getting taken over in so many of the other episodes too. It's not just me with that criticism. I've seen it online too with some of the reviews. Like I have the as I mentioned in the past, I have the Zach Baggins official page on Facebook liked on my own Facebook, so I get to see his post, and then also I get to read the comments that people place. But one of the most common critiques is how it seems like every other episode he seems to be getting possessed. Like there's always something happening to him when it comes to some malevolent entity trying to take over for him. I'm not trying to say like in the meanest way possible, but it's just how many times can it happen? You know, in other words, whenever it comes to that kind of stuff, after a while, it's almost like the boy cried wolf when it comes to hearing something and then trying to wonder and believe if that's truly the case there. But still, seeing Zach at least try to push Billy, and then also it looks like he was trying to choke hold Aaron as Aaron was passing by, and then also it showed Zach collapsing there on the stairwell. I don't know. It got me thinking like if he's getting more and more sensitive, that this is really bad for him, or, and this is me just playing devil's advocate, no pun intended, then you have a situation where it's making great television yet again. I hate saying that, but it's the kind of thoughts that people have automatically whenever they see something like this, like they see a lot of red flags, if you will, and then when that happens, this is the critiques. These are the stuff that people post online, that again involving the comments and others within the Zach Baggins Haunted Museum. I'm wondering if other people are directly mentioning some of that too. I'll have to look it up later on. By the way, he still looks super skinny too. When it comes to his physique, he does not look like he has those big muscles from before. So I'm wondering if something else changed, like maybe he is now on another diet, or if he changed the food that he ate, or something else altogether. But it was that at least stood out to me too whenever he was there, collapsed in that area, and then it was focusing on him in the Dybbuk box, like the segments were focusing on him there. So, all right, everybody, let's go ahead and let's see segment 3 together, and then I will see y'all soon. Alright, everyone, welcome back. We just watched segment 3 when it comes to this quarantine special. The segments are getting shorter now whenever you get to the middle of the episode. They're much longer at the beginning, but as always, the commercials get quicker. Like the segments come up quicker for the commercials as the episode progresses. So now it looks like they're back at it, where they're outside. And then Zach gave a very perfect description when it came to the ghost hunting, because that's essentially how I feel too. There's no fear really when it comes to this stuff. There's more like anxiety. It's like on my end, the way I see it is you got to take it professionally, but don't let it overwhelm you at the same time. So whenever I do my own ghost hunts there, very rarely do I have any kind of fear, but I do have precaution. I do have anxiety to make sure that everything is done right. You want to make sure that there's anything involving any kind of cracks that can form where this stuff can truly make a bad impact afterward. I do love, though, that evidence that they kept repeating, that puff of smoke that was from the past segment, and then also this one here. I mean, that was something else. Like, when you saw those eyes that appeared looking back at the camera, that was really, really freaky stuff. So again, it goes back to what I was mentioning in the past segment. With that perfect evidence, why on earth hasn't this been done before? Like, why not continuously have a camera facing the Dybbuk box, and then you could try to catch this type of magic every single night? I mean, that's just perfect when it comes to getting the best evidence in the world. So maybe, who knows, maybe that'll happen again, but we shall see. And then finally they walked into the house, straight towards the Dybbuk box, the room, in other words, that it's located at. Seeing them walk past those hallways with a bunch of ease, it got me thinking, how easy they make it look, because when I've been there those past 3 times, it's a maze. Like, when you get there, you get passed between room after room, 33 rooms in total. You can get hopelessly lost based on the way that they're moving about. To them, though, both Zach and Aaron, and then of course the tour guides, they know it through the back of their hand now. But as a guest, whenever you're there, you pretty much don't know where you're at any point whatsoever. You don't even realize all of a sudden you're on the second floor because of the ease that the steps are made at certain points of the museum. You're not going upstairs specifically, you're going up certain panels, and then that makes it really, really interesting when you suddenly realize, oh, I'm on the second floor. That's how crazy it gets there when it comes to getting lost for it. I do love all the cameras and the setup that they were posting too within the room itself. You saw the thermal camera, the spectrum camera. I think there was one more camera involving like a motion and then also a sound camera. Oh, that's the kind of equipment that I wish I had when it came to my own ghost hunts. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And again, he was mentioning about it being the root of all evil. It goes back to my argument that I mentioned in the other segment. If that's been evil that's been contained, why has there been continuous set of wars? Why have there been millions of people that have died from these wars ever since then? If this evil has been truly contained, so I don't know. There's just that claim again about it being the all powerful thing in a box, in other words, 10 boxes in total. It just makes me wonder again, like, what else is causing all this other evil in the world if it's been so expertly contained. So interesting stuff when it comes to that analysis. And then finally, it looks like whenever it comes to the box, there he is standing from there, about ready to open it, and then he says, stop saying that, and then it looks like he's being impacted yet again. He says, stop saying that to Aaron, and then he has more back pain. It's interesting that all this stuff is impacting him directly, because as mentioned in the other segment, who was it that mentioned that? I forgot what the guy's name, but he was stating that Zach is an empath, and that's the type of stuff that he feels directly. It reminds me of some other people that I've seen, how that stuff impacts them very seriously, and yet on my end, it's nothing at all. It's just some people have it, some people don't, and if you have it, you'll definitely apparently have that stuff hitting you hard, and if you don't, like in my case, it'll just seem like another regular day. It's just the way things work. And then another thing that I saw that got me a question on, and I mentioned it in the past, how can people see darkness within darkness? Because it looks like, again, they're filming it in the room, but now they're not even using that light, the one I was mentioning earlier that just seems to be shining in the Dybbuk box whenever you're there as a tour guest. Now it seems like they're doing it in complete darkness. So the fact that he in turn can see what he described like a shadow huddling on the ground, how can you see darkness in darkness? I just can't see it. The way I see it, whenever something like that is happening in the investigations I'm on, and someone says they just saw a shadow person run through a corner, I look at that corner and I see nothing. I see just complete blackness. I was even staring one time at a direct cell there at the Gonzales Prison Museum when one of our other members stated that they're looking at that exact moment at a shadow person staring back at them. I looked at that exact moment at that exact place as this shadow person was staring back at us, and I saw nothing. I just saw 100% pure darkness. So I have no idea, how do people do it? I can't see it. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen, but all I see is just complete darkness, black on black, in other words. So how does that happen? And then finally, the segment ended with the box being open. So it looks like this will be segment 4 that'll have the big reveal, like what's happening on the inside, what's been released, and so on. So all right, everybody, let's go ahead and let's see segment 4 together, and then we'll be back soon. All right, everyone, welcome back. We just watched segment 4 of the quarantine special associated with the Dybbuk box. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that here. So the box is now fully opened. It's been opened. This is the big moment, the one we've been waiting on for all these episodes. And this is now the meat of the investigation of the box being opened. And there he is, staring right into the box, getting as close as possible. I love that when he did that, because essentially I've done the same exact thing, the very same exact thing on one of the trips that I was there. I got to see the box, and then it was a small group, and so because of it, I was able to walk up right to the box, and obviously the glass is there in my case, but I was able to go as close as possible, like maybe a couple of centimeters away, from the glass and staring right into the box. I tried to see as close as I could into any of the crevices, any of the open spots, if you can call those, from the areas of the doorways. Like, you know how we can close a box, but you still see some area on the inside. That's essentially what I was trying to do. And so I got that close. So really neat when I saw that part from Zach's inspection. And I was able to do the same thing in the back, and then I did it on the corners as well, like on the left side, on the right side of the box too. And I got to see a little bit in, very tiny part, like maybe just a couple centimeters inside the box, not the actual contents inside the box, but still a couple of centimeters into the box. And so that's as close as I came whenever I was doing my own inspection. And then finally, you got to see what happened with Zach after the box was opened. It was kind of a little bit anticlimactic. He's right, nothing really popped out. Like, in other words, there was no rush of air. There was nothing like from Hollywood that showcases screaming ghosts coming out. Nothing along those lines. It seemed more as something along internal conflict. There he was, Zach, having some kind of issues one more time on an internal level, like something was overwhelming him, and so he had to go sitting down. But at least there was a little bit of anticlimactism associated with that. And then also there was Kevin's name that was mentioned when it came to that device in the box itself. I thought that was really neat. Very intelligent response. Very hard to rule away something like that as just being a coincidence. You also heard the same thing involving the word evil as well. That little girl singing was freaky too, because yes, I've heard children singing as well there at the Doug Russell Park. Not children singing. I've heard children playing at the Doug Russell Park there in Arlington, the same one that has the Cemetery of Lost Infants. The rumors are, the hauntings are, that you'll hear children playing even though there's no play set around that area. Well, I've heard them, and that was the first time that I went there, and thinking, oh, okay, there must be like a play set somewhere around. And then that's when I realized afterward, reading more information, that there's not. There's absolutely not. So I heard the very same thing like Zach has heard when it comes to some kind of children's voice. And so that was really eerie hearing that as well. The box temperature going up and down, not really sure on that part. It could be just the box, being opened and having new temperature within it. Who knows? I didn't really buy too much on that part. The SLS camera, though, the evidence associated with that was amazing. Great, great stuff on that part. Having a figure pop up in the middle of the box on cue, like he was stating, appear, and then all of a sudden it appeared right there in the middle of the box, nowhere else, not on the top, bottom, left, right, nothing, right there in the middle of the box. That was awesome. And then seeing that figure now going out of the box and into the museum, it got me thinking it's somewhere out there now in the museum itself. Can you imagine if I go back there? There's a good chance that this figure, whatever's in the Dybbuk box, is now going to be roaming other parts of the museum. I'll have to see, though, the rest of this episode to see if they were able to put it back into the box. It'll be interesting to see how that's the case. But if it's not, then it's somewhere out there in the museum as well. And who knows, I may be able to run into it there into the museum. So let's go ahead and let's continue the episode, and we'll have segment 5, and then we'll come back soon. Alright, everyone, welcome back. We're now going to talk about segment 5 of this Dybbuk Box Quarantine Special Edition episode. So it starts off right off the bat with a loud bang as Zach is setting down the second open Dybbuk box. I forgot to mention, too, that second Dybbuk box, when it was opened, like the smaller one, it seemed like it was empty. There was nothing in there. No devices, no relics, nothing like you would imagine that would normally try to trap something so inherently evil. It just seemed like it was just empty, nothing in there. Not like the larger Dybbuk box, the one that has those items within there that looked very, very holy, like very something else, like when it comes to a religious matter. But yeah, they set it down, and then there was that loud bang. Kind of hard for on my end to see or hear, like if it was associated with the settling down of the box, because it seemed like it was right at the same time. But who knows? I don't think they had it as a good angle, like when it came to the image from the camera, like showcasing if it was set down at the exact same time. But for their perspective, it definitely seemed like it was something else, like it was a completely separate bang, as opposed to the one of the noise of the box being set down. Real quick though, but yeah, that was the case. And then another thing that was real quick was this. Did you get to see a hallway shot where you saw a little bitty head? That's an evil shrunken head. That's another portion of the museum that's completely volunteer. Apparently, that shrunken head, which has its own hallway, like it's a U-shaped hallway, you can go if you volunteer to go see it. Like the tour guide will tell everyone about the history associated with that shrunken head. Apparently, it's cursed. If you look upon it, it's definitely going to give potentially some bad stuff to you, some bad juju, in other words. And so it's a volunteer basis. I've seen it twice because the first time I was there it was not there and at the museum, and so it looks like Zach got it afterward. But I've seen it twice. Nothing really bad has happened to me, but some of the people that were there on the tour decided not to go see it. But yeah, that's an evil shrunken head, cursed if you look at it. In fact, you're not even allowed to stay in the hallway looking at it. You just have to walk by. The tour guide specifically makes sure that you walk by only and you're not pausing to go see it. If you stay there any longer, they'll get you out of there, in other words. And so that was really neat to see that too. And then it looks like Zach decides to carry around the Dybbuk box. That got me curious. Like, why would he do that? Again, really easy apparently to remove. I would have thought that it had been stapled or something, like glued, or something else, like on the actual display itself, on the podium. But much like that glass display, it looks like it's really easy to take off. I'm wondering again how safe that particular part is. And there he is walking around with the Dybbuk box. I don't know why he was doing that. Then it seemed like it was a good idea, but there he is doing so. And then there's Billy walking around some of the other areas too. If you saw the room involving the skeletons and the casket, those are real skeletons, by the way. Those are actual skeletons of past people. Apparently, I'm trying to remember the history of the room, but apparently it was tied to some kind of, I don't know if you could call it rituals, but there was something else, like involving a person or two people dying as part of some kind of summoning, something else. It was like masonry type stuff. And so when that happened, that room is having some bad stuff in there. People have seen shadow people within that room, but more importantly, people have heard a little girl within the corner of the room itself. If you ever go to that room, be sure to go and sit on the last row of the chairs, the one closest to a little, I can't remember if it was a casket, like a little girl casket or a little girl basket, like the ones that babies ride around in. But yeah, if you do, go sit in that last row, because the way the story goes, you're going to hear a little girl crying within that skeleton room, and you can only hear it in that last row. Literally, somebody could be sitting in front of you, just less than a foot away in the row in front of you, and they won't hear it, but you will from your row because you're in that special row. So again, remember that if you ever go on the tour, and then that way you're supposed to get to hear that girl. I'm wondering too if that's the same girl from before. Remember how Zach and was it Billy or Jay? I can't remember, but one of them heard also a little girl making a noise from within the home or within the museum, and I'm wondering if that's the same one that was within the skeleton room as well. And then as far as him walking around with it, and Zach walking around with that Dybbuk box, and then having Billy try to touch it, I would probably wouldn't touch it either. Everything that Billy was mentioning made sense. How you kind of want to respect that stuff while at the same time be fascinated by it, but make sure you stay a distance away. Like I mentioned in some of my past videos, I know my limits when it comes to that stuff. So the way he's acting is the same way that I would as well. And then there's Aaron blacking out. I don't know though. He seemed to like, what's what I'm looking for? Like he seemed to go down in a resting position, and then he blacked out. I thought when people blacked out, like they just blacked out, like they collapsed on the floor, like almost like as if they were knocked out, that kind of stuff, like knees going down, hitting the ground hard, and then almost hitting their head on the ground. But I don't know, this seemed like he was trying to catch himself, but then he was resting, and then he blacked out. I wish there was a better angle. You just got to see his legs, and it happened not just once but twice. He passed out a second time as well as Zach was looking about, apparently not caring about what was occurring, but it made it seem like it was like he was trying to catch himself lying down, and then he passed out. So that's at least the way the segment ended, and then you got to hear Billy mention that there was another person, someone else, telling them that they wanted to kill them. So that was a pretty scary thing to hear as well. So let's go ahead and let's watch the final segment associated with the special edition quarantine special, and then we'll wrap things up here. All right, everybody. See y'all soon. Alright, everyone, welcome back. So, we finally saw segment 6. Final segment of the final episode of the quarantine special there at the Zach Baggins Haunted Museum. And of course, it continued with the effects of the opening of the Dybbuk box. And so, right off the bat, you got to see what it looks like the interior of the hallway, and then there was something being moved about, like it looked like a shadow. You got to see the brim of a hat almost on the corner of the room and or the corner of the hallway, and then you saw a mist-like uh, darkening shadow moving about there too. I was wondering why they didn't focus more on that. Like, why didn't they repeat that evidence like they normally do in some of the other segments? Whenever there's really, really good evidence, like they'll repeat it twice or maybe even 3 times. Why didn't they do it here? So that was really neat. At least to see the disparity of the two items. And then, speaking of two, there was the 2 night destiny that Billy was mentioning about the fact that nothing's going to happen there, but once they get home, that's going to happen afterward, and specifically 2 nights later. I have heard this before. It was in the Halloween special, and then it was on another episode as well, where they talked about the fact that a lot of people don't realize after they finish filming these segments, wherever they're traveling to, whenever they get home, they have these experiences. Aaron was mentioning that at one point it may have caused the divorce of his wife because of the bad stuff that's there in his home, and his wife wasn't liking all that stuff being brought home. And then there was also Zach, who had mentioned that he in turn has had some friendships and I think relationships that have ended as well because of the bad stuff that has followed him home and has stayed there as well. In fact, I think he said one time that there's a basement where he tries to lock everything that he can, all the evil spirits that follow him home, into that basement, and that's apparently where it's really bad stuff. Like, if you ever had the chance, or somehow, some way, of going into Zach's home, then you better risk it. You're taking a risk, in other words, because of the fact that there's all that evil there that also seems to follow his relationships at the time, and then also his friends followed them back home too. It reminded me of our own ghost hunts that we do whenever we're leaving. We order anyone there, any spirits, entities, good or bad, to not follow us home. We order them not to do so. We do so in a very strict manner too, in a no nonsense, no BS mode, like it's not happening when it comes to having any of these things follow us home. That seems to work. Like in my case, it seems to be fine, but apparently some of my other investigators there have had some issues with some of the items following their home. So be careful again whenever you have that stuff being done in terms of a ghost hunt. You got to be really, really forceful and make sure that nothing like that bad happens. And then you got to see Zach walking around with a Dybbuk box. He went into the Ed Gein room, where Ed Gein being the infamous person that inspired several movie horror icons, and then also there's been countless documentaries and other type of movies about him as well. He was the guy that dug up those women's graves and tried to make a suit made out of women's skin, and then at one point I think he killed, was it one person? Yes, he killed like one older lady as well because of his crimes, and then he was found not guilty or guilty due to insanity, something like that. It was something where it spared him the death penalty, which kind of made a lot of people really, really mad. The one thing I don't understand about the Haunted Museum is, again, they're trying to link serial killer stuff slash crime stuff with paranormal stuff. Like, I don't really see that type of link there. It's a criminal case. That's the type of world that it's involved in, as opposed to, let's say, supernatural. But there he is in this case with the box itself, and then he's acting all sorts of weird in terms of drumming his hands there on the glass display. That's the cauldron, by the way, that Ed Gein used whenever he was mixing in chemicals for the skin of the body and then removing skin and so forth. So that's the same cauldron, and so there he was tapping on the glass display in a weird manner. I gotta say, and I'm not meaning this as a critique, I'm just stating what other people that I've read online have stated, but he's giving his critics a lot of material to again say and think to themselves, how much of this is Zach really acting, or how much of this is truly impacting him? Because again, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, in my commentary, a lot of things seem to just be impacting him continuously. Like, it's every other episode he's being possessed, and here he is again, one more time, being possessed too, and acting in a very strange manner. So the fact that this is continuously happening, he's not giving his critics too much leeway when it comes to trying to prove to them that no, it's not fake, it's real. In other words, the way it's happening. And then finally, I got to see how they're able to get back that Dybbuk into the box. Apparently it's as easy as ordering it to go back in. I thought they were going to use some relic, holy water, or something else, chanting, something like you would say, like you would see in the movies where they try to order something into a corner. Here they're trying to get it into the box, and it's as easy as telling it to order it back into the box. So is it done? If that's the case, is it done? But then there was that follow-up involving Billy's dog dying 2 days or 3 days afterward, and they're trying to say that it's not a coincidence, but it maybe still be a coincidence because of opening of the Dybbuk box. So we shall see. And then there was another critique there that I constantly see within the episodes, and that's the fact that it ends all of a sudden. It seems like they ran out of time, and then when that happens, it just abruptly ends on a cliffhanger almost, about the dangerousness of COVID-19 and about the fear that it instills and how it's tied to the paranormal world. So one more time they squeezed that part in again. But again, it was a critique that's kind of right. Like, it just suddenly ended on its own very, very quickly. But that's it. That's all the episodes. This one being episode 4 when it comes to the lockdown special. I had a blast doing these. I definitely had fun being able to talk about every single segment within every single episode and provide my own in-depth analysis based on my own experiences there at the Haunted Museum. I've thought about doing this on a weekly basis with each new episode of Ghost Adventures. The problem is I don't know much of the information on the areas that they're visiting otherwise at other locations. Here, because it was that's the museum that I've been to 3 times, I know so much info, and that way I could present something like this. So I don't think it's going to work out with doing it, let's say, at some of the other episodes on a continuous basis, on a weekly basis at least, for each season. So I'll give that a pause. But at least I had really, really good fun with this one. And I hope you did so too. Everyone who hung out for these past couple of hours. This is almost like our 4 hours now when it comes to the commentary on these episodes. Hope y'all had a blast with all the rich detail I was able to provide from not just my own personal experiences, but also watching these segments together and giving my opinion on them. And who knows, maybe I might be able to do something like that soon. So, alright everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.